10 of the scariest science experiments ever conducted. While science has the power to improve our lives and cure disease, it can also be used to torture, murder, and brainwash. Here are 10 scary experiments that destroyed lives, or have the potential to unleash doomsday. Worm diet. In 1878, Giovanni Battista Grassi infested himself with worms by ingesting eggs which he kept after an autopsy. This weird method even became some kind of rite of passage for some parasitologists. Scientists create new life from a mouse that has been frozen for 16 years. Scientists have created clones of a mouse that had been dead and frozen for 16 years. It is the first time they have been able to clone a frozen animal. The Japanese researchers say their work will benefit mankind, and could be used to bring back extinct animals such as the woolly mammoth or saber-toothed tiger. Critics say it brings the world closer to the day when people try to clone long-dead relatives stored in cryopreservation clinics. It could even lead to a macabre new industry, in which people leave behind relics of their bodies in freezers in the hope that they could one day be cloned. The latest experiment comes more than 11 years after British scientists stunned the world with Dolly the cloned sheep. Although scientists have since cloned a host of different animals, using genetic material from single cells, they have always used living cells. Animal mind control. José Delgado developed a StimEver in 1963, or a computer chip operated by a remote control unit used to electrically stimulate the different regions of an animal's brain. The chip, which was embedded in the animal's skull, could produce a variety of results that ranged from the involuntary movement of the limbs to eliciting emotions and appetite. It was said that one time it even stopped a raging bull in its tracks. Nazi experiments. The medical atrocities performed by the Nazis are well documented, and undeniably horrifying, with Joseph Mengele's work on twins being especially disturbing. What's also terrifying is how useful this information was to medical science. A large amount of our knowledge about how hypothermia and cold affect humans is based on this data. Many have raised questions about the morality of using data gathered under such horrific circumstances. Crucifixion Research. Similar to the hanging studies, the Crucifixion Research aimed to figure out what a person goes through when crucified. The pathologist Frederick Zugibe did just that to his volunteers. MKULTRA. MKULTRA was a codename for a series of CIA mind control research experiments, heavily steeped in chemical interrogations and LSD dosing. In Operation Midnight Climax, they hired prostitutes to dose clients with LSD to see its effects on unwilling participants. The very concept of a governmental agency trying to control minds, both to boost the mental abilities of its friends, and destroy those of its enemies, is suitably horrific. Scientists are creating a modified mosquito to fight other mosquitoes. A genetically modified (GM) strain of malaria-resistant mosquito has been created that is better able to survive than disease-carrying insects. It gives new impetus to one strategy for controlling the disease. Introduce a transgenic mosquito carrying a gene that confers resistance to the malaria parasite into wild populations in the hope that they will take over. These mosquitoes had another gene inserted into them to make their eyes fluoresce, to distinguish them from the ordinary strain. The insect carries a gene that prevents infection by the malaria parasite. The researchers caution that their studies are still at an early stage, and that it could be 10 years or more before engineered insects are released into the environment. The approach exploits the fact that the health of infected mosquitoes is itself compromised by the parasite they spread. Insects that cannot be invaded by the parasite are therefore likely to be fitter and outcompete their disease-carrying counterparts. Eyes wide open. Ian Oswalt, a sleep researcher and psychiatrist from the University of Edinburgh, sought to discover whether people could sleep through anything. So, in 1960, he taped open volunteers' eyes and placed flashing lights 50 centimeters in front of them. He also exposed them to electric shocks and loud music. However, all the subjects eventually fell asleep, some within just 12 minutes. His conclusion: the regular and repetitive rhythm of the stimulus allowed them to doze off. The hanging study. Forensic scientist Nicholas Minovici conducted the hanging studies by advising assistants to hang him as well as other people to see what happens when someone dies through hanging. Stanford prisoner experiment. Philip Zimbardo's Stanford prisoner experiment took place in the 1970s. The psychiatrist took 24 undergraduates and assigned them roles as either prisoners or guards, in a mock prison on campus. After just a few days, 1/3 of the guards exhibited sadistic tendencies, 2 prisoners had to be removed early due to emotional trauma, and the whole experiment only lasted 6 of the planned 14 days. It showed just how easily normal individuals can become abusive in situations where it is encouraged.